Someone once said, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. And if you don't step forward, you're always going to be in the same place. A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today, in fact, marks a very special day for us here at MSSI, as every small step that each of us person with MS have taken in our fight for insurance is culminating into a big leap as we launch our campaign, InsureMyMS. InsureMyMS is MSSI's attempt to try and get the much needed attention of our government and our insurers, to have them understand the challenges that we face on the ground and to have them help us with a financial risk cover at the earliest. My name is Jaya Matthew, and I'm a person with MS. And it's my great fortune to be able to lead this insurance project nationally for MSSI, alongside my good friend and warrior, Mr. Rav Kumar, under the guidance of Mrs. Renuka Malakar. And on behalf of MSSI and the project team, I'd now like to extend a very, very warm welcome to each one of you who has joined us this evening for this special launch. And it's also my absolute pleasure to welcome our chief guest for today, Mr. Arman Ali. Mr. Arman Ali is the Executive Director of NCPEDP, which stands for National Center for Promotion of Employment for Disabled People. I must say, sir, it's really a matter of pride for us to have you amidst us. In fact, we got to hear that you really fought it to the finish to get your wheelchair insured, and we really can't wait to hear more of that in the discussions that follow. I would also like to welcome all our well-wishers who have joined us from other NGOs and disability organizations. Welcome, and thank you for showing up to support our cause. Last but not the least, my entire MSSI family, welcome. After all, this is our special evening. We have refused to quit. Let's continue to march on. And with that, I now turn it over to my friend, Mr. Sanket, to kickstart the proceedings for the evening from here. Over to you, Sanket.
Hey, thanks, Jaya. First of all, hi, and a very good afternoon to you all. This is Sanket Mistry, and I am the Honorary National Joint Treasurer at MSSI and the founder member of the MSSI National Youth Wing. Now, first of all, I'm really proud to see that a project on inclusion of MS in health insurance, which was started some 3 years back by our National Youth Wing members, has taken the shape of a campaign named InsureMyMS. Now, today, we will be having a panel discussion on the topic, navigating chronic disorders without insurance. So let me quickly introduce our speakers for the panel discussion today. And I would request Javed to spotlight on them as I introduce them one by one. So first of all, we have on our panel, Mr. Arman Ali. He currently serves as the Executive Director of NCPEDP. He has served in advisory roles with the Election Commission of India, the National Human Rights Commission, the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, and on UNESCO's editorial board on the State of the Education Report for India 2019 in children with disability. He has been the alumnus of the International Visitor Leadership Program, IVLP, by the US Department of State, and has undergone leadership training in public policy at the Oxford University. He has also launched the Javed Abibi Fellowship for the Youth with Disabilities in 2021, the first in Southeast Asia. He has also been recipient of the National Award for the Most Efficient Disabled Employee in 1998 by the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Arman sir, we welcome you to the panel.
Thank you, Sanket.
Yeah. Next, we have on our panel, Mr. Sandeep Chitnis. He is currently Honorary National Secretary at MSSI. He is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, FCA, and holds a certificate in business valuation. He is a senior partner at DB Ketkar and Company, Also Director at InnoVision Corporate Consultants Private Limited, Director at InnoVision's People Development Consultants Private Limited, and Independent Director at CCOM Reality Limited. He has extensive experience in finance, business strategy, and corporate consultancy. Sandeep sir, we welcome you to the panel as well. And last but not the least, we have on our panel Mrs. Renuka Malakar. She is currently the Honorary National Joint Secretary at MSSI. Now, she has volunteered with MSSI for 26 years, as has been the caregiver for her husband with primary progressive MS. She has initiated MSSI's National Advocacy Project in 2016, when she was the previous National Secretary. She has represented India on the MS International Federation, UK CEO Advisory Committee, Resource Alliance Group, Essential Medicine and MS Atlas Working Group, and International Working Group on Access to Affordable Treatment. She is the board member of DMAI, an organization with special consultancy status with the United Nations, as well as Economic and Social Council, working on healthcare reforms to ensure accountable, affordable, and accessible healthcare in India. Renuka ma'am, we welcome you to the panel. Now, let's quickly start off with my first question to the panelists, and I'll start with Sandeep sir. Sandeep sir, we wanted to ask you, like, you start on with beginning, like, what are the major gaps or exclusions in the recent insurance products offered by person with MS across different insurance companies in India, and how how can these challenges be addressed to ensure that people with MS can access to affordable health insurance? Over to Sandeep sir.
Okay. So in this case, I would like to specifically mention that these specific insurance products, or rather insurance policies for persons with disability, was introduced only after IRDA took out the circular on 27th of February 2023. And after that, it was mandatory for all the insurance companies to come out with specific policy for persons with disability. However, and everybody has come out with the policy. But the beauty of this thing is, they have come out with the policy, but surprisingly, it is not available. They are not publicizing it. It is not even available. Even today also, just now before our starting of this webinar, I checked with two of the companies, HDFC Ergo and Tata AIG. This policy is not available. So far, they are not issued. So if the policy is only made available theoretically, forget about the flaws, which I am coming later. But first of all, the availability of the policy itself is not there. So all the insurance companies are, they have come out with this one. They have declared on their website, but it is simply if you go there, you cannot purchase. Now let us come to the other major flaws. First of all, the question is about access of the policy, which I mentioned just now, but the access is also restricted to only people with benchmark disabilities, having benchmark disability certificate. Now the problem is, most of the people with MS are not even having this benchmark disability, or forget about benchmark disability certificate itself. For that, we have been representing repeatedly to the ministry, and finally we got our new assessment guidelines by which the disability classification, particularly for multiple sclerosis, is being changed and slightly improved. There are still flaws in that, but we will take it separately someday. Now coming to this one, if you are insisting that it is available only for the people with benchmark disability, what happens if it is a below somebody is having below benchmark disability? And in case of multiple sclerosis, most of the time there are invisible disabilities. With invisible disability, many times getting benchmark disability is very difficult. And for no reason, this criteria is being kept. And for that, as you asked also, how to overcome. So for overcoming this particular issue, that is insisting on benchmark disability certificate, we should represent to IRDA and tell them that this must be waived. No normal person is going to take this policy because it is not anyway favorable, or it is more expensive and not favorable. So why insist on difficult entry level? So the entry should not be restricted. This is the first thing which I am mentioning. The next one is this policy, the coverage is only maximum up to 5 lakh rupees. Now 5 lakh rupees coverage is not going to be taking you anywhere in current high cost scenario. So that is where the major issue is, the limited coverage about the financial amount. Again, the waiting period for this one, there are two kinds of waiting period. In fact, this is the speciality of these policies, that the policies which are available for people with disability, that out of this 21 disability persons suffering from any of this disability, including multiple sclerosis, is given this particular policy, and the waiting period for person with disability for the specific disability will be 2 years, and any other pre-existing disease, it is 5 years. So for 2 years, multiple sclerosis will not be covered in the policy whenever you are taking. Again, the next major issue about this policy is it is very, very high premium. The premium is really unaffordable. For youngsters also, the premium is coming about 35,000 and all per year, which is very difficult for a person to sustain, and definitely it needs to be revamped and reduced considerably. Then there is an issue about co-pay. In this policy, they are having co-pay, that is for every claim, 20% the insured person has to pay. So this one, or there is another choice is further jack up the premium, which itself is high. So then the co-pay can do. So this one is also there. The co-pay issue is there. And the last, which is unusually, there are two more issues. One specific to multiple sclerosis is for multiple sclerosis, people have to take DMTs, that is disease modifying treatment. And disease modifying treatment is mostly taken as an outpatient department, similar to chemotherapy. However, as far as the daycare's definition is concerned, the daycare's definition is clearly covering chemotherapy. However, DMTs are not specifically covered. So there is a chance that at the time of claim, most of the multiple sclerosis persons claim for treatment of DMTs as an outpatient will be rejected. So this is a major flaw in this policy, and we will be representing. In fact, last time also, Arman will remember that in the insurance, the committee meeting of all the insurance companies, we represented that this particular DMT's treatment must be taken as a daycare treatment. So that is what is mentioned. And the last thing I wanted to submit is, in case of normal person, any other medical for medical, that is healthcare insurance, there is a chance of getting top-up and super top-up, by which you are extending your policy substantially at a lower period. However, with this policy, the policy for persons with disability, nobody is giving top-up and super top-up. In fact, the policy itself, nobody is right now actually issuing. So that's all my submission is. And for this, how to overcome? The overcoming is basically we have to represent to IRDA also and various places and changing all. Thank you. This is my preliminary.
Thank you, Sandeep sir. I mean, this was, you have shown that what are the gaps and challenges are there in getting this health insurance thing. I mean, I have two heavy questions lined up for Arman sir now. The first of them is, how can we create a more integrated system between health insurance and disability insurance, promoting early intervention and management of pre-existing conditions to potentially prevent this future disabilities? Arman sir, you're on mute. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Sanket.
Yeah.
First of all, I must admit and remind everybody here that there's nothing that I will tell all of you that you don't know of. And let that sink in. ऐसी कोई बात मैं आप लोग को बताने वाला नहीं है जो आप लोग नहीं जानते हैं. All of us are on the same side. And the biggest problem हमारे बीच में ये है, I will also try to be a little bilingual if people don't want me to speak in Hindi, that we don't talk to each other.
Right.
And Sandeep has very well covered some of the very important points. And we had this national meeting in Bombay where Sandeep was there and other disability groups were there. We had about 30 insurance companies there. And we had a day-long, very aggressive meeting, with them. Now, when you ask this question to me, and honestly, I do not have a set answer. मेरे पास कोई ऐसा जवाब नहीं है, which is a solution. Something that we have been talking about from last 1.5 years or so, that there is no data. All of us must understand that insurance is a business. And it is not something which is run by the state, but it is run by private companies. There's a regulatory body. So there need to be data, and there needs to be sharing of this data amongst the insurers. And I'm talking about a collaborative model, where you bring organizations like ours, like MSSI and NCP, DP, and other federations. We need to bring the health workers. We need to bring IRDAI. We need to bring the insurers together. And we work through a collaborative model where you are constantly sharing data and analytics. And one of the biggest hurdle that we have, Sanket, is the underwriting. We need to streamline underwriting. If you don't streamline underwriting, and they look at MS in a very different way than what it is. So most important thing which is cut across all the points that I would mention is awareness about our conditions and educate people. It's not just awareness. It's just not one webinar. It is to educate people about the conditions that we have, like MS and other disabilities. And each one of us who is present here and our family members and needs to kind of gather evidence. So you mentioned about my insurance. I have got a health insurance recently, I think last year in August or September. And after trying 8 years, I have got a health insurance in my name. You mentioned that I have got my wheelchair insured. How did it happen? So it happens because when I bought my wheelchair, which is an expensive 4.5 lakh rupees wheelchair, and this is something very common sense for me to realize that it's expensive. I travel a lot. I travel every week from one city to another. My wheelchair is folded, kept in the car. Multiple people are handling my wheelchair. When put in an aeroplane, coming out the wheelchair, putting a taxi, taking on the hotel, and so on. If anything goes wrong with my wheelchair, who will pay for it? Because it is not because, bicycles can get insurance in India. Mobile phone can get insurance in India. So why not an assistive device? And it is not about a wheelchair. It could be a hearing aid. It could be, any other device that one may use. So I wrote to about 13 to 15 insurance company, to the CEOs, that I have a wheelchair, I want to insure it. Please let me know how to do. Out of them, 7 responded. The 7 we followed up, and eventually 3 people offered this insurance. The lowest insurer premium was coming from SBI General, who said that we will insure your wheelchair worldwide for any uh, theft, damage, or lost. uh, I think this is fair enough. That is how you can get insurance for a vehicle or anything else. And this could be only possible because I constantly communicated, kept the information as evidence data. I tweeted about it 1 year prior to buying this wheelchair, that I am going to buy a wheelchair, will I get an insurance or not? So policy reform can only happen if you generate evidence, and there is no other way. You need to educate, you need to build. So how many of us here have applied for insurance is my question. And how have many of us have applied to multiple insurance companies? What is the response? How are we documented? Have you paid premium? Has the premium come back to your bank account? Have they issued a rejection a letter? Have they given any ground of this? Unless and until we, do this, insurance companies will not come to you and do it. We need to create a centralized coordination. And I keep talking about this to Sandeep. And this Insure My MS is not your initiative. It is also NCP, it's also other people. So ensuring that we have a centralized approach and coordination in this very important issue is the key. We must keep IRDI in the loop, make them our partner in what we are doing. It is something. It is not for this 100 people who are on the webinar, or only people who are associated with your organization. It will have a long lasting impact on millions of people in India. So I think these are some of the lessons that we also need to learn and educate others. There is no enmity. It is not hate crime towards disabled people or MS. It's acute lack of awareness, acute lack of no understanding of the condition of people. Because today, somebody with MS may be walking, tomorrow on a wheelchair, the day after may have seizures and so on. So this needs to be understood and told. I do not see that happening anywhere, and we keep talking amongst ourselves. There is no interdisciplinary exchange in terms of information. So this is my first response to you, Sanket. You can come back to me.
Right. I think the second question is very much within that what you say. They're saying it's like for the people with pre-existing conditions and invisible disability, especially, there is a lack of outward signs that can make it difficult to convince our insurers of their limitations. So how we can bridge a gap between this invisibility of certain disabilities and the need for concrete evidence for this insurance purposes, and also keeping in mind these plans, keeping them affordable.
Again, not very different from what you asked me earlier. Number one is, again, building awareness and educating people. How many of us do know about our rights? What is the, what is the RPWD Act talking about? What is the Insurance Act is talking about? What is IRDI guidelines on insuring disabled people? So that's number one. So the work to start is with us, our own house. We have to clean our own system. Some of the things which comes to my mind, there's a need to create a standardized assessment for people with blood disorders, for example. How do you do an assessment? Will it be only a diagnosis, or do you want an alternative evidence source? For example, what is your treatment record? What is your therapist saying about your condition? So you need to have it's already there. It's not something you have to reinvent the wheel. There's a graded system of insurance. If you have a pre-existing condition, there's a waiting period for that. So that waiting period, how do you grade it? And grading on that grading basis, on the severity, can you look at the severity of functional activity? How severe and how does it affect your functionality? Rather than just the diagnosis, somebody may have any condition of blood disorder, but how does it affect your severity in terms of function? So looking at these few ideas around, I think, graded way of looking at pre-existing conditions, waiting period. How do we look at alternate evidence towards to your thing? Because Simple example, sometimes when you say that you smoke 1 cigarette a day, that can also get your insurance, not applicable in certain cases. You're doing alcohol use, for example. So it has its own grading system, it has its own system, and that is also important, which we cannot ignore. At the end of the day, our motive is that people who are with MS or any other disability should be able to get health coverage of other conditions which may arise, and also the daycare and OPD and other services that you need for your own existing condition is another very important aspect of it. But everything starts with us educating ourselves and talking about it, creating evidence. Apply for insurance as many as even 100 people who are on the call right now. If they apply for insurance, if they record this the evidence that what is the response, I applied on this date, this happened, everything done on an email, not on a phone call. This 100 application rejected going to IIDI will create wonders. I think this is the only way to go forward.
I think that's the thing. Okay, I now move on to Renuka ma'am. Like as a caregiver to person with MS, and from your experiences as one of the leading voices on advocacy for insurance, can you elaborate on the specific challenges which are faced by the MS community when it comes to insurance coverage?
Thank you, Sanket. So your question to me, I will first take the perspective of a caregiver. And what I would like to say is that I'm a very blessed, or should I say privileged caregiver, in the sense that जब कोई फौज में सर्व करता है तो उसके सारे मेडिकल एक्सपेंसेस हमारे एस्टेब्लिशमेंट उठाती है. तो typically, if you ask me as a caregiver, what is my challenge? I don't have a challenge. But I have been speaking with many caregivers जो हमारे पास आते हैं, हमको कहते हैं कि हमारे पास इंश्योरेंस नहीं है, हमारी बेटी को अभी MS हुआ है, उसकी शादी कैसे होगी, उसको किसी तरह से हमको ठीक करना है, हम अपने घर को गिरवी रखें, हम अपने गहने को गिरवी रखें. So that is the sad part, and that is why I'm saying that I am blessed. But we need to, and I completely agree with Arman, that we should talk, we should build evidence and bring these stories. Also, the other challenge that I have heard from caregivers' perspective is MS का तो किसी भी तरह वो पैसे जुटा के किसी भी तरह ट्रीटमेंट कर रहे हैं, चाहे वो लोन लेके हो या किसी चीज को गिरवी रख के हो, लेकिन केयर गिवर अलाउंस जो है और या UDID का डिसेबिलिटी सर्टिफिकेट जो है, उसके बगैर तो कुछ भी नहीं हो सकता. ये पर्सन विद डिसेबिलिटी का जो गाइडलाइन आया है वो मांगता है कि आपके पास डिसेबिलिटी सर्टिफिकेट होनी जरूरी है. और हम समझते हैं कि गवर्नमेंट को भी ये आइडेंटिफाई वैलिडेट करना है कि सही लोग को सही पैसे जा रहा है और फ्रॉड नहीं हो रहा है. तो ये तो हुआ एक पहलू जो केयर गिवर, जो मैं खुद केयर गिवर के पर्सपेक्टिव से बोल रही हूँ और जो मैंने दूसरे लोगों से, दूसरे केयर गिवर्स से के पर्सपेक्टिव को जाना है, सुना है. चैलेंजेस वही है जो सारे संदीप ने भी कहा है, अरमान ने भी कहा है. The premium, the waiting period, the lack of awareness, the lack of empathy, the lack of sensitivity, the lack of understanding the invisible disability and क्या स्पेक्ट्रम होना चाहिए, कौन डिसाइड करेगा कि ब्लड डिसऑर्डर में कौन किस तरह से असेसमेंट होगा. तो these are common challenges. And one more thing that I wanted to actually add in alluding to Arman as well as what Sandeep is saying is that evidence, data, and you will be very happy to know that, yes, it is not MS fight alone. It is not InsureMyMS. It is ensure everybody who has a disability. And that is the reason why we feel the power of having organizations like NCPDP, your networks of disability organizations, our supporters who are joining. क्योंकि हम तो एक ही drop हैं, लेकिन many drops make an ocean. And the brass tacks, agar kaha jaye, the brass tacks of the matter is the intention with which the campaign or the intention with which the company or the country or the ministry is launching insurance, whether it is the Ministry of Social Justice, whether it is Ministry of Health, whether it is IRDA, the intention is very good. अब उन्होंने अपना काम कर दिया, उन्होंने कुछ लॉन्च कर दिया, लेकिन हमारी जिम्मेदारी ये है कि हम उनको अपनी आवाज उन तक पहुंचा के बोले ये हमारे लिए ये काम कर रहा है या ये काम नहीं कर रहा है. This works for us, this doesn't work for us. जब तक हम उनको एविडेंस के तौर पे हमारे दिक्कतें या हमारी चैलेंजेस के बारे में रिप्रेजेंटेशन नहीं देंगे, they will not know that they have to improve. That's the typical point in case, which Sandeep has been saying, which Arman, you're also saying. We need data, we need evidence, and this particular campaign and today's effort, 3 साल लग गए हैं जया और राम, जो खुद MS से पीड़ित हैं, जिनको खुद इनविजिबल डिसेबिलिटीज हैं. हम आपको ये सारा डेटा देंगे, हम आपके साथ शेयर करेंगे, आप उसमें बिल्ड कीजिए. It's like making building blocks to make a big fortress and then take our voice. So I think whatever I have heard from both the panelists is completely in line with our campaign. You will all be extremely happy and we will share this data. RTI की बात करो, ये सब वो राम और जया बताएंगे आप लोगों के कि उन्होंने 3 साल में कितना एविडेंस कलेक्ट किया है. शायद ये एक छोटा सा बूंद है समुंदर में, लेकिन हमारी ये छोटी बूंद आप लोगों के छोटे बूंद के साथ और आपकी आवाज के साथ ये बहुत बड़ा एक समुंदर बन सकता है, एंड जिसमें हम अपनी किश्ती लेके जाएंगे और गवर्नमेंट को बोलेंगे पॉलिसी रिफॉर्म कीजिए. दैट इज द नीड ऑफ द आवर. अगर किसी के लिए कोई स्कीम बनाया है और वो उसी के लिए उसको सूट नहीं करता है, तो वो उसका कोई फायदा नहीं है. और वो तभी चेंज करेंगे जब हम लोग सब जाएंगे, चाहे हम पार्लियामेंट में जाएं, चाहे हम मिनिस्ट्रीज में जाएं, पर जाना जरूरी है. So these are my two aspects which I thought I would like to, I hope I've answered your question, Sanket. And as for the rights, we have all the rights to high quality healthcare. Thank you.
A quick last question to you is, in the interest of time, I think we have some few minutes. Can you just give your suggestions for improving the overall insurance experience for our person with MS?
Well, I think the experience question is very vital, but you know, it should come with evidence, and which I think Jaya and Ram will present. They have some recommendations. So rather than repeating, but I would also like to, instead of repeating what they are going to cover in their report finding as well as their project, which they have done, I would like to say that United Nations Convention for Rights of Persons with Disability ensures that high quality treatment, Article 25 पढ़ लीजिएगा, कि best quality health care सबको मिलनी चाहिए. हमारी प्रॉब्लम ये है कि बिकॉज हमारा इनविजिबल डिसेबिलिटी है और बिकॉज इतने सारे डिसेबिलिटी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस के पेशेंट्स हैं जिनकी इनविजिबल डिसेबिलिटीज हैं, it is time for the government and the ministries and the agencies and the regulating authorities to think, do you want to see your youth, who's going to be your demographic dividend and your workforce, become disabled and lower the productivity of their workforce? Or do you want to catch them young, stop their disability, and that can only stop if you give them insurance and they have access to treatment. जो मैं कह रही थी, treatment जितना जल्दी मिलेगा, disability उतनी देर से आएगी या रुक भी सकती है. तो अगर मेरे पास इंश्योरेंस है और अगर मेरे को डे केयर में या इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसी में डीएमटी आउट पेशेंट में मिल जाती है, तो शायद मैं डिसेबल्ड नहीं होंगी। हमारी करंट स्टेटस ये है कि सारी कंपनीज, सारी के स्कीम्स वेट करती है कि आप डिसेबल्ड हो जाओ, हमें आपकी डिसेबिलिटी दिखनी जरूरी है, तब हम आपको स्कीम ऑफर करेंगे। This needs to change. I think this is one of the biggest suggestions that I would like to put out in terms of improving the experience of anybody who has a disability, visible or invisible.
Okay. Thank you, Renuka ma'am. I think we should quickly, due to time constraint, let's quickly move on to our next segment, wherein I think we invite our National Youth Wing members, that's Jaya Matthew and Ram Kumar, to throw light on their project on inclusion of MS in health insurance. So let's me begin with introducing them first. First, I begin with Ram Kumar. He has been living with MS for the last 12 years. He is one of the founder member of the MSSI Tiruvananthapuram chapter, and currently he serves as the secretary of the MSSI Tiruvananthapuram chapter, and he is also the governing member of the MSSI. Next, we have Jaya Matthew. She is also diagnosed with MS in 2020. She has been awarded as the India MS Person of the Year 2023. And currently she serves as the Joint Secretary of MSSI Bangalore chapter. And she leads this national insurance project for MSSI alongside with Ram Kumar. So let's, I think, in paucity of time, let's not waste time. And let's begin with you, Ram. I think more often than not, we hear people saying that insurance for multiple sclerosis or person with multiple sclerosis, that's a lost battle, given that's the almost a harsh reality. So why did you choose to embark on this project? I'll go with Ram first. Ram, you're on mute. Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yeah. You're not.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Sanjay. Actually, before I start this one, please excuse if I stop somewhere or if I lost the continuity in my speech, because I do have some kind of cognitive issue. So on the time, my co Jaya is here, so she can able to intervene here if I lost somewhere. And coming back to your question, it is very unfortunate to say that in India, few people who are affected get proper treatment. See, there are many reasons for that, but mainly it is a financial issue. Let me give you an example. When I went ahead with our chapter formation in Kerala, I met a mother and daughter who was abandoned by her father for not being able to afford the medical expenses. It is very sad, to say that the mother had to see the physical condition of her daughter getting worse and day by day without timely treatment. If they had received some kind of financial help or medical aid, the situation would not have happened to the child. Everybody knows that MS treatment in India is not affordable to everyone. Our public health system is not good in every state. We don't have any medical subsidies or any kind of help from the government sector. Even though I'm not sure whether how many government authorities can aware about the MS. So we have to be identified the importance of inclusion of MS in health insurance, which is a project by the National Youth Wing of MSSI. Before that, I can explain one of my experience. I do have a health insurance before the diagnosis. And after the diagnosis, I have tried to enhance that cover. But the company denied without any reason. When Jaya invited me to this project, I also felt it is going to be very useful for us, the MS warriors. I think if we can clear on here. So what is that, why we choose this project?
Yeah, coming back to you, Jaya. Can you throw some light on, how you all went with executing this project? And then what are some of the interesting findings that you have come along the way?
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of interesting findings along the way that we have had, Sanket, but I should also give you a disclaimer that a lot of those interesting findings are also unfortunately very disappointing. But I'll get to those momentarily. Let's begin with your first, part of the question, which is how did we go about executing the project? Interestingly, I heard you ask Ram this question, insurance for persons with MS, and that's a lost battle, right? So why did we even go about it? And I had my friend Ram actually touch upon why we went about it. And I'm going to talk about the what aspect, right? What are the findings and how we went about it? But I'll also want to begin with where you actually put that question. When Ram and me started this, we were acutely aware of the fact that we are up against an uphill task. Okay, that's from our personal experiences, which Ram also mentioned in terms of the rejections that we've had, the resistance that we've faced. So we absolutely know what we were up for. And therefore, we also chose to work this out in a very, very scientific way. And that's the approach that we took. And it really goes back to what Mr. Arman Ali mentioned as well, right? You need to have substantiated information. You need to have data in place. Otherwise, it's, shooting in the dark. And that's precisely what we decided to do so that, with that kind of substantiated data, we would be able to set a correct direction for our community when we take the next steps. So now talking about the findings that, I was mentioning, one of the first things that we did as part of this project was to start an internal survey that is within the MSSI community. And we did that because we thought it was very important for us to take an inside-out view of what the condition on the ground is, right? So that's how we started it. And we had a good 301 respondents that responded to our questions. And one of those findings, which is interesting and which really caught our attention is that not one of them, hear me very clearly, not one of them got a personal health insurance post-MS diagnosis. Now, this is very disturbing also because, it just takes us to the fact that this is a basic right that we are asking for. And like Renuka very, correctly mentioned about the UN rights, right? It's about the basic right to health. And when everyone is saying they're not getting it, we really have a problem. But what that also meant for us is that it validated our problem statement and that this project is really important, irrespective of how difficult or how tough a battle it is, because nobody has it, which means it's all the more important for us. So that is point number one. And then we followed this up with desk research. We actually tried and understood what are the different policies that are available today. How is it designed? What are the exclusions, inclusions, and all of that? And then we decided to go ahead and call all of them, or at least a few of them. And when we did this, there was another very interesting finding or an experience that we had, which is every one of them rejected our application. But again, what's important to note is that not one of them chose to give us a reason for the rejection. This is exactly what we've heard from a lot of other folks in the MS community, but that's really the brutal truth today. We just don't even get the reason behind the rejection. And we decided to probably be a little smarter. We said, let's kind of change gears and do things a little differently. Let's now go and try to do things a little more passively, put them into the website, try to see if we can get, an application moved in that manner. And, when we actually did that, we were in for a bigger shock. Because the moment we put that we have MS and we have a disability, the next thing that popped up was, please go to the nearest branch. Now, at a point in time where we think that you are going to make things accessible for persons with disability and help us to get something sitting at home, on the contrary, you're asking us to go to the nearest branch. So that's another finding that we had, as we went along the way. Another thing that we did is we said, now let's get a little more smarter. Let's broaden the scope. Let's go to people who have a larger perspective of this. So we went to brokers and consultants, trying to see if we can even broker a group insurance for all of us. So we had discussions with them, and I won't even mince my words because they did. They said that, we are in many ways a drain in the pocket. And over there, if you'll actually let me be a little self-indulgent here and throw a little light on my own experience, because I want you to understand what that really means for a person with MS and how discriminated we feel about it. Because I'm someone who was diagnosed with MS in 2020. And when I was diagnosed, I was called out as a condition both very aggressive and atypical. And which means that I was going to be put on very hard-hitting medication, which meant that it's going to be very expensive. So the first thing that me and my husband thought about is no-brainer, let's look at the insurance. And we immediately looked at a critical illness rider that I had then in possession. And we actually went ahead and requested for the money. And to our big shock, the claim was repudiated on the grounds that my condition is pre-existing in nature. A very bizarre conclusion if you look at it, because I am diagnosed in 2020 and I'm going a few weeks later only to be told that this is a condition that's existing for a very long time. Now, this takes us back to what Mr. Arman Ali also mentioned, this is the problem, because lesser known conditions like us are so easily misunderstood or sometimes even misconstrued, right? I can't get into more details of that. I'll have to be a little cagey here because at the moment, my case is sub judice and I'm fighting this in the High Court. But that is one thing to just let you know how much we go through as part of, trying to even get an insurance that we already had. And then talking about trying to get a new insurance because we thought, okay, now let's try and get a new insurance. And we went ahead and reached out to folks. And there was one person specifically that I reached out to. A very interesting experience again, because I was diagnosed right in the peak of COVID in 2020. And the offices are shut down. So before my offices shut down, I used to have this one gentleman who used to very dutifully visit our office every week and try to give, push insurance to me. And, I didn't take it then. I was toying with the idea, but COVID came in the way and it didn't happen. So when this finally happened, I actually went back to him and said, this is the state of affairs. Can you help me with an insurance? And he said, he will come back. 1 week went by, 2 weeks went by, radio silence. Then when I finally got across to him, he actually told me, we won't be able to give you anything. And I'm really sorry about it. That's why I didn't call you. Then I said, I don't understand what you mean by not giving anything to me. You're giving dialysis, you're giving cancer. Talk about it that you probably will increase my premium. You would put me on waiting period. But what do you mean by saying not giving anything to me? And then here's what he told me. Because I know you and you're pushing me a little too much, I'll tell you that what we figured out is you have a condition in the brain and we don't know what part of your body is going to fuse when. And we can't take this risk. It's really difficult. And I'll tell you, even when I was diagnosed, saying that my condition is very aggressive and atypical, I didn't break down. But the day that this gentleman said something so discriminatory, it really broke me down. And that's really what gave me the impetus also, to kind of work along with Ram and everyone to fight this hard. And I'm saying this because, again, we need to have all of this data and information. And when I spoke to multiple people in our MS community, and you would hear the stories when the campaign is rolled out, folks who have come out and spoken the experiences that they have, all of them have been discriminated or felt disadvantaged about it. And coming back again to the project itself. So when we spoke to the consultants as well, our experience was not very different, even collectively. And then another thing that we did is we said, okay, let's now go and get the RTIs, done and see what can be done. So we filed RTIs to all the national, insurance companies and also to the IRDA. And very interesting there, IRDA again came back and clearly emphasized that, insurance has to be given to everyone, but they can impose a waiting period of 24 months or 48 months. Now, then here's the $1 million question. Why is it that none of us have an insurance, even if it's about waiting for 24 months or 48 months? Still worse, why is it that none of our applications are even being accepted? Forget about getting an insurance. Now, these are all the things that we are grappling with, and these are the findings that we have, which I said is disappointing. And then coming back to also, reaching out beyond this, like Mr. Arman Ali was mentioning, this is beyond just, MS community or any specific community. We need to connect. And that's exactly what we did as well, Ram and me actually, with all the support of all the MSSI leaders, actually reached out to multiple NGOs and disability organizations, only to know that they echo the very same sentiments as us, and that all of them are struggling. And, that's also why today we have actually decided to launch this campaign, because we have understood that we need to pivot and unify as a team and, kind of build this visibility so that the right stakeholders will understand where the problem is. So I hope I've answered
Right.
your questions.
I'm glad that you have brought up that point, on the other disabilities and organizations and NGOs, being disadvantaged. Now, can you tell us a little about the insurance policies that has been designed exclusively for disabled, and what is our position on that?
Yeah. That's actually a very important question that you bring up. But in fact, a lot of ground was already covered by Mr. Sandeep on that. And I also heard Mr. Arman Ali talk about the meetings in Mumbai, which was around this as well. But there were a couple of things that he also brought up in terms of a lot of the data and the time around this is all up in the air, which we don't know. And therefore, I think this is an important thing for me to maybe quickly run through so that everybody understands, because none of us have time to be unclear anymore on this. Be it the insurers, be it the government, or be it the MS community itself. Again, like it was mentioned, we need to know, what we have and what is our right. And therefore, I'll quickly run you through this, the different points that were already mentioned once before. But for those who have tuned in a little late, just, for you to know, the Delhi High Court had asked IRDA, which is the insurance regulatory body of the country, to go ahead and ask all the insurance companies to design insurance that is specifically for people with disability. And in fact, we actually put a pause to our project for a brief period during that time, quite happy that probably we are going to be getting out of the woods after this. But after what came our way, I think, and we started to read all of this, a lot of the excitement again shifted to disappointment. And again, I'll tell you why I'm saying this. A few things you need to understand. The construct of all the 29 policies that have come out, or rather seen theoretically, like what Mr. Sandeep mentioned, is almost the same, right? So we're talking about everyone giving you a coverage, not anything great, but at least something there, 4 to 5 lakhs is what they have. And where they actually vary is basically in terms of the premium that they ask you for. Now, what are the low lights that we've seen over here? One, clearly they've called out that you need to have benchmark disability, or you need to have the UDID for you to even ask or apply for this. Now, why is this so much of a problem for us? One, because we don't think it's inclusive at all. The second thing is, so rightly the way Renuka mentioned, MS is a condition that hits you at the prime age. MS is a condition that is very progressive in nature. MS is a condition that needs timely treatment along with diagnosis. And therefore, what we are trying to do is seeing how we can get our youngsters a safety net cover, right? So that they can actually start their medications immediately. But then here is the disability policy that has been designed telling us, stick around there, get a little disabled, and when you get to 40%, please come back to us and we'll give you an insurance. I mean, I don't have to tell you anything more than that, right? It doesn't really make sense, at least for us as a community. So that's point number one. Point number two, in terms of premium, we've been saying it's very high. But what are the kind of numbers? Even if you have to look at it, you can take a look at, the different policies, but I can throw some numbers for you, One of them, in the age group of 21 to 35, they say that it's about 48,000 that you will have to pay, excluding the GST. Another one from the 36 to 45 bracket is talking about a premium of 56,000, which is excluding GST. Now, I can tell you with my hand on my heart, we have data to tell you that at least our community is not going to be able to afford it. And we can say that very clearly because our survey carries those kind of data of what is affordable and what we can deal with. I mean, I don't think it's going to be affordable by anybody outside, or at least doesn't make sense. But nevertheless, we have the data to say that this is really not going to work for us. Point number three, considering that this is specifically for the disabled, we said, let's look at it with a little different lens. While the other insurance, policies may not have this, does this have, over-the-counter kind of pills that are taken care of? Because a lot of our people are on those kind of pills. The answer is an absolute no. Then we looked at immunotherapy, because another larger section of our people are on immunotherapy drugs, right? And here's what we got to know. They cover 50% of the expense. But just let's take a step back and see how this works out. Firstly, you're getting 4 to 5 lakhs, a small cover, because then I don't think more than a couple of doses will go through on that. Second is you're paying a very high premium. Third is you have to wait for 24 months to even get to that point where you can start even, availing this. Fourth is you get only 50%, right? And the fifth, even worse thing is you pay a 20% copay on that. Just do the math yourself. We don't think this is an economically viable solution at all. And finally, when we talk about assistive devices, right, this is again for the disabled, and hence we are looking at it from that angle. We would think that this would make it to the policy, because assistive devices is a must for persons with disability, but it's shocking. It's not made it to that policy. Now, these are all the reasons for us to believe And it's not just what, Ram or me or, a few of others have looked at it have thought. We've again gone out and spoken to other NGOs, disability organizations, activists. We've taken their view as well. And all of them echo the same sentiment. And if I may be bold enough to say, after speaking to all of them, we think this is just for code compliance. This is really not, done with an intent to perhaps, really go all out and help us. And what is also very important to understand, like Sandeep said, is it seems more theoretical in nature. Go to the website, it's not even very easily findable. When you want to make things accessible for the disabled, this seems more of a deterrent. So these are the kind of things that made us believe that we have to pivot beyond just talking to the insurers. We'll have to go to the government. But there again, I also want to take a step back and tell you quickly in a minute what we also did in terms of understanding why the insurers think we are such a difficult risk to take on. Now, we'll have to look at it from their view as well, right? Like how Mr. Arman Ali so rightly said, it may not always be that they don't want to. I mean, then what is the reason, right? There are a couple of things that came out from, the kind of research and discussions that we had with folks. One thing that they said is there is lack of domestic data. So the insurance companies tell us that overseas data is what is influencing our pricing decision. So the question here is, who has to provide the data? All fingers are pointing to the government. The second thing, they say the quality of the data is questionable. Again, another question. Who has to give credible data? Who has to have the number matrix? Who needs to know what is the customer base? All fingers are pointing to the government. Another thing they say, there are a lot of expenses which are hard to understand or, put together because hospital costs are unregulated in the country. Now, this is what the insurance company's point of view is. Again, who needs to step in? There are people who are delegated to do this. Again, it points to the government. So the point that we're trying to make is with all of this, we understood now it's time for us to pivot from just looking at the insurance companies or working with just the IRDA to now also involving people of significance and consequence, people who can actually understand where the gap is in the policy. So just to summarize all of this, our position on this, one, this disability policy that we're talking about is very cost prohibitive. Does not make sense. Two, we are not being, I would say, we are not being, we're not giving a prescriptive guidance that don't go for it. To each his own, but we are calling out what we think is, not really a viable option for us. So please take a judicious call. And three, in terms of how will we go forward, like I said, we are going to go with the government. But that said, there are a lot of gaps that we have seen. And Mr. Sandeep and Smita, the disability activists from Chennai, both of them have actively been participating, in the larger interest of the disability community to make representations and point out where the gaps are, the ones that we have just discussed. So this is all in all, what we have kind of been able to put together. Sanket, I hope I've answered your question again.
Sure. I think we have already hit 5 o'clock, but one last question to Ram is, looking ahead, what are the next steps and goals of InsureMyMS campaign, and how can people get involved and support our cause? You can quickly share that.
Sure. So I know the slide is coming. So here, I'm telling that Jay clearly mentioned over here, pre-existing disease is not the reason to deny any health insurance. The company is denying it without any reason. So it is completely against our fundamental right, is it? So where we have to fight? We have to fight with the government itself. So how many government schemes available here? Is it reachable to all citizens in India? No, there is economic segregation is there, right? So even though people can able to access the specialty centers, no, we don't have availability in all parts of India. So where we have to reach? So we have to reach with the government. So we have to getting those support from the government. It is not easy. So we have to reach the different government officials, stakeholders, policymakers to get our rights to it. Our representation goes to parliament. Our problem should address there in both houses. If it is needed, we have to file a appeal, public interest, in the court. And we should seek support from different NGOs like NCPDP and other NGOs like us facing the same issue. So the collective voice to raise for getting our rights. We have to raise our voice more loud. See, our expectation, uh, anyhow, we need a financial response for the people who is suffering with MS. We have a strong organization called MSSI behind us to reach this part. Anyhow, so I'm telling that. So you all please join with us to this campaign, which is going to be launching today, and make our sounds more loud and to make it happen. So I think, Sanjayji, I'm stopping over here.
Sure,
You're
sure,
not
sure.
take
I
much
think
time.
thanks, Jay and Ram, for this wonderful insights on your project. And now I think the time has come, for the moment has arrived, when we are officially announcing the launch of our InsureMyMS campaign. And I would request Javed to play on the videos, please, and would also request all the audience to please join in our movement of InsureMyMS campaign. Javed, can we have the videos?
June 28 is National Insurance Day here in India. What better day for Multiple Sclerosis Society of India to launch its third advocacy campaign called InsureMyMS. The goal 28 June is National Insurance Day here in India. What better day for Multiple Sclerosis Society of India
Guys, we have technical issues at Javed end. He's not able to log in. Share the videos at his end. There are some technical issues at this point. So he has just called in up. So he will be logging out and logging in back in quickly. And we'll be playing these videos. So I think I request everyone to just bear with us for this technical glitches.
Sure.
Ram and Jay, if you have anything else to say, you can still use this time. We can still have. He will come in 2 minutes. I think, is he in?
Actually, I have to say one more thing. They have a miss over here. See,
Ram, you can go ahead. If you want to say something, you can go ahead. Till then, Javed, I think, will be sharing his video.
28 June
I think video
is
is
National
on.
Insurance Day here in India. What better day for Multiple Sclerosis Society of India to launch its third advocacy campaign called InsureMyMS. The goal is to take our voices, our problems, our challenges, and all the gaps that we are experiencing to policymakers and all stakeholders in the healthcare ecosystem to think and develop a financial risk cover for persons with MS once diagnosed. This will help in timely medical intervention, thereby arresting disability. Please do check out all our social media handles from the 28th onwards to hear all the real stories that we have gathered from the ground. Thank you so much, because your support in joining our movement will help make our voice louder.
Javed, can you share the other video also? Javed, share the website survey and just get, just in 1 or 2 lines, just explain to them. Javed, we are not able to show it still.
Yeah, just a minute, I'm sharing.
Yeah, okay.
I hope you're able to see the screen.
Yeah, we can see now. You can explain to them.
Okay, so this is the online survey launched today to capture the primary data of person with multiple sclerosis related to health insurance. As Jay mentioned, we have already done similar survey 2 years back, but that was limited to fixed population or fixed sample. This online survey would cover maximum persons with MS. This is the online survey. Anyone can fill this detail. Those who are struggling to get the insurance, or those who have already having the insurance, but are facing challenges. So anyone can fill this questionnaire. And I will request all of you to just go through this question. These are the simple questions. You have to provide your email ID, and first question is related to: do you have health insurance coverage? The options are yes and no. If you already have health insurance coverage, then you will have to attend next two question. When did you take the health insurance survey, before the MS diagnosis or after the MS diagnosis? Next question is, what is the satisfaction level with the current health insurance provider? There you have to provide your satisfaction level. कि आप कितने satisfied हैं, extreme level पर हैं या satisfied, somewhat, या not satisfied, बिल्कुल भी नहीं. तो यहाँ आपको ऑप्शन चूज करना है. नेक्स्ट इज इफ यू डोंट हैव हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस कवरेज, अगर आपके पास हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस कवरेज नहीं है, इफ यू मेंशन नो in question number 1, then you will attend this, you will skip both these questions, and then you will attend this one. If you don't have health insurance coverage, what is the reason for not taking health insurance coverage? There we have given 4 options. You can read. And if the answer is any other, then you can mention here. If you selected any other reason for the above question, please explain, else you can skip this. If you have opted 1, 2, 3, then you can skip this. If you have not any other option, then you will have to give other reason. Then what are your monthly medical expenses? So here you have to tell your monthly medical expenses. Next one is without health insurance and an extra source of income, what do you think about the burden of disease on your family? या आपकी फैमिली के ऊपर कितना भार है इस मतलब एमएस होने की वजह से कितना ज्यादा पर एक्स्ट्रा बर्डन है. So that you have to provide the information. Compromising with treatment, कहीं ऐसा तो नहीं होता कि ट्रीटमेंट से कंप्रोमाइज कर रहे हैं. Cutting down expenses on other family need. अगर हेल्थ नीड ज्यादा है तो कहीं आप जो अदर फैमिली एक्सपेंसेस हैं उसमें तो कट ऑफ ही नहीं करते हैं, लाइक बच्चों की एजुकेशन से या कोई भी और हो सकता है. तो यहाँ पर आपको ऑनेस्टली देना, अगर यहाँ पे कवर नहीं हो रहा है देन यू विल हैव टू ऑप्ट अदर्स, एंड अगेन यू विल हैव टू प्रोवाइड अदर्स रीजन in this section. Then last is please feel free to share your experience not covered in the above question. हो सकता है हमसे बहुत सारे क्वेश्चन मिस हो गए हों, so if you have anything in your mind you can mention here, and then you will have to provide your name and city, and then you can also mention that are you a member of MSSI or not. Then you simply submit and your data will be captured, and after getting data from all of you, we will analyze this data, and based on the analysis, we will use this data to represent at various platforms so that we could, we could advocate with the policymaker with the help of this data. But data is important. Without data, we can't do anything. And once we will get this data from the PwMS community, we will be able to show that we have first-hand information, we have primary data in our hand. So I will request you again, please fill this form and share in your group so that they could also fill. But this is only for PwMS. Thank you very much.
Javed, there is one more question from the audience also, that how to get to this form.
This is on our website. When you will, just a minute, let me go through this. I'm sharing our website. Yeah. Okay, so this is our website. When you will go on our website, you will find this page, scroll down. So you will get this. So simply click on this. Then you go down and then you will get option. Your voice matters, take our survey. When you will click on take our survey, so the Google form will automatically open. Here you can fill detail and simply submit. So I hope it's clear. And we can also share the link, direct link. So you can, also directly go through the form and fill the information.
Sure. Okay. Thanks, Javed. I request everyone to join in our moment of this InsureMyMS campaign by taking this survey. We'll also share this link, as well as we'll also share it in the WhatsApp groups also, and also email it to all the chapters so that it will be beneficial for all the MSPs to get through the have the access to the Google form. Now, finally, I request Mr. Arun Mohan, our MSSI GC member, to give the vote of thanks. Over to you, Arun.
Thank you so much, Sanket. To start with, I want to, a heartful thank you to every person who has joined us in this launch campaign. I must thank Arman and Sandeep and Renuka, Jaya, Ram for their most valuable inputs about whatever was presented today, and such important information for everybody with their insights. It has been invaluable. It has been too good to be true. So thank you so much. And thank you, Sanket. And thank you, every member of the National Youth Wing for the work which has been provided. And I must thank MSSI for doing a fantastic job where the launch of this campaign is concerned. Yes.
I said thank you.
I must request everybody to take the survey and please help us with this information, because like what Arman and Javed and what Renuka has been telling, information helps us bring insurance to all of us. Thank you so much. And thank you, Priyanka, for the wonderful job that you have done with the sign language interpretation. Thank you. Thank you and thank you. Good day.